What's the order again?
Terrorism, framing, the critique. Alright, is that pretty good? Yeah. Terrorism outweighs in terms of the critique its successful attack causes global nuclear war, independently triggers nuclear war, makes the earth uninhabitable, conceded impact by the one and see that's our helmet evidence. Any U.S. response to another terror attack turns the critique, even if it's not causing extinction, ignition, and for after an attack anchor would hang over our life for a generation. Americans will never give a second when we might find ourselves living in continuous lower sealed borders, identity checks and detention camps, rights might disappear, torture might reappear, government would not have to impose tyranny, we would demand it, we might repeat the worst mistakes from our past. The app solves 3 internal links versus recruitment, and omnipresent U.S. makes recruitment easy, empirically proven by Al-Qaeda to use the goal of pushing U.S. out of the Gulf to drive recruitment. That's our pose and evidence. Second is allied cooperation. The African powers, local actors in the Gulf through better intel sharing and military support. That's key to resolving ISIS and creating long-term stability. That's Posen and Lister and C-subpoints diplomacy. The app makes intel sharing more effective. That makes drone strikes more precise. That solves ISIS by targeting their leadership structure. That makes ISIS unable to carry out coordinated attacks against the U.S. That's Posen. ISIS nuclear terrorist feasible group. Their defense, it's all wrong. Austin in 15. ISIS obtained uranium from Mosul University. They had the heart of corrupt officials from Pakistan for the remaining equipment and know how to build a bomb that which could be then be exported. Radioactive matter has fallen into the hands of ISIS. The organization recruited trained professionals, development of the dirty bomb by ISIS. A very real threat. Extremists could move through South America's porous border to Mexico with the nuclear bomb in the trunk of their car now. Their core link is wrong. First of all, it's a critical terrorist. It links to all of our critical terror studies offense. It's wrong terror study. It's wrong because their authors are self-reflection. And their argumentative focus on discourse as a creator for terrorism is totally non-falsifiable, which completely rejects the scientific method. You should be skeptical of that argument. That's Jones and Smith. Also, it's academic censorship. Controlling what we say about terrorism makes it impossible to have informed debates about it, which makes preventing another attack impossible. All of our scenarios are dissatisfied. So these 4 arguments, that's Reichlach now. Our epistemology is correct. Our authors are qualified and objective national security experts who have huge incentive to be self-reflexive because they would lose their jobs if they were caught inflating threats. Red-seeking would risk career termination. That's Raven. Independently, the process of debate solves this offense. If our authors are wrong and our threats are just socially constructed, it should be very easy to win the case debate. You should be deeply skeptical of blanket assertions of bias. That's Raven. Also, there, Park artist from 2002, it does not assume ISIS being a threat in 2014 or 2015, which means you should prefer the specificity of our scenarios. I've already answered their impact defense. They say counterterrorism is heteronormative, but that's not true, and their framing of it that way can't solve Islamic violence through secular structures intact that continue to justify interventionism abroad. Don't want 13 generate sexuality or sex, which is about relation between religion and secularism is negotiated flagging. Religion is a secular version and source of violent cultural practices. A little bit important debate with secular inherent evidence arguing that religion experiences secularization are encountered differently among gender and sexual life. The condoning adults are by liberal secular feminists in the West, and the name of gender equality and sexual freedom reveals the limits of global sisterhood and term definition of terrorist destroys advocacy skills, leads to worse representations and fuels political opportunities until they 1A. Restricting terrorist description biases discourse. A rhetorical approach, however, suggests consideration to result to bear in mind that strategy changes in definition of future detrimental facts, proposition for redefinition, or accepted widely in public discourse, or well, because conclusion this will diminish the ability for constituents participants to develop debate to argue effectively. Redefinition would decrease the clarity of moral, political living in order to make distinction what kind of way we want to achieve. These suggest that we should be having a semantic indication. Redefinition may increase political opportunities and unscrupulous in the vision or redescription. A recent example of foreign policy rhetoric in U.S. Britain 2001 Chair caught the card of terror. I don't need to really rest of those warrants. Now go to framing. They say the state orders violence against bodies. That's not true. And independently, all of our framing arguments are reasons why we resolve that. It's our policy relevance arguments are reasons why we need to check this back and have policy relevant debates to resolve the violence again that the state does in the status quo. Even if it's bad now, it's better in the world of the app because we were able to be informed citizens that can solve these kinds of violent ordering. Now they say method is first, but that's bad. Good is good enough. Method focus never results in action. Fear and 2. The point of our scholarship is the answer questions are very concerned about all methods. Methods are the same, not ends in themselves. It makes little sense to rule out an approach on broad prior arguments. Method becomes ontology, which leads to neglected problems that is poorly suited to address. Masuni is wrong. Macy 95. Contrary to the truth cycle analytic truth. Those what repressive lose their conscious control sense to run the behavior when an inner situation is not made conscious. It happens as fate. Also, the Masumi card is not in the context of us reading preemptive cards on the in the space of debate. It's not contextual to the debate space. Don't let them articulate that way. Now they say legal formation equals subjugation and co-option, but our local evidence is excellent in response to this by saying there can't be co-option if we don't have informed. Co-option is inevitable if we don't have informed knowledge about legal structures. The app solves that back because we have legal technique that allows us to know when the government is trying to co-opt our movements, which means that we're better able to resolve it. Also, it's a net beneficial argument to the permutation of, say, role-playing excludes minority debaters, but we don't role-play. It's policy analysis, no loss of agency, either in 5. Policy teams don't role-play, there's legal out there, and there's a token imaginary part of the policy teams never tend to be the government they imagine the consequences of the government acting plan determine what should be done. Our theater represents as a step as imagining cut that card at imagining how they say that a righteous America fuels ego of militarism, but that's not our aft. The aft acknowledges that U.S. military presence is not a blanket solution to military problems in the Gulf. The argument is that we need to step back and act from behind to resolve these problems and let other actors in the Gulf step up and fill that role. There's only a risk that the aft solve it. Now, there was also no shift arguments. That's not true. Their redeployment later arguments are wrong. Lots of 9 wide. How bases are sustained in the world of nation states. Bases are naturalized. They are thought of as inevitable. Commonly circulating rhetoric. They suggest the president is natural rather than the outcome of policy choices made in keeping with the aim of pursuing a certain empirical vision of U.S. interests. Militarism and intelligence supports its policy thesis are presented as single safety devices against your director by focusing facts on the ground. Commentators suggest there's an alternative in these ways. Discussion of alternative production of U.S. military power around the world is as they say foreign policy, some other dichotomy. That's not true. And independently, the act resolves it. Okay, go to the K. Framework, the role of the ballot is to win fans' merits against their alternatives, directing the act because parts of our advocacy are imperfect, is not productive, allowing the act to choose the debates, focus, strikes ground, that's key to fairness. Moving to 1AC makes it impossible to be affirmative ground, is also key to clash, which means it turns the blocks education arguments, and there's also a legal technique that they don't answer our wall evidence. Governments have control of information asymmetries that they use to maintain control. The public's here informed. Debates about foreign policy decisions are preconditioned to challenging right-wing propaganda that appear to lead to violent military interventions in Vietnam and Iraq, which means we solve any of their endless war arguments, and policy relevant debates about military presence are key to holding the government accountable. Only engaging specific roles can solve their heteronormativity arguments. That's our ballot evidence. Now, the link debate, they say debate is heteronormative. They don't explain why debate is inevitable. There's no reason why they all can resolve this. Their link is just a link of omission. The the permutation can resolve this. Rorty and 2 expulsion seems too pejorative. No text can answer all possible questions. There's no back representation. Text narrative should not be rather than just indigenous exercise of repression. They should be read as one version of make it be told many other ways. Immaterial gains are critical leading coalitions. Their heteronormativity links are wrong. Post and 15 persistent pressure sheets for incremental changes. We also motivate other activists to join the fight when they submission once success is achieved. Feeling willing to do something that's fatalistically wanting to do. Their med link is I'll respond to a med here. Cross apply our cross-apply the cross-apply the Wendt evidence. They don't have a response to this. Reality exists independently of discourse. Just because we talk about something doesn't affect the way it exists in material reality means discourse doesn't shape reality and complexity theories wrong all policy. It stops all policy decisions being made or knowledge. It is challenging to establish priorities, not impossible priorities. Just keep our steps in proposition direction moving place into the complexity encourages the complexity induces people to society today's world. The threats will overrun this factor. Complexity seduces this priorities need to be set in model in which everything is relative, model which nothing is. Their endless war arguments are wrong. Brain 70 billion political systems design for concerning executive beyond Iraq can build that authorities is not complicated. The policy by the discipline secret is not convincing. It should be this for what is a little pragmatic merit. Discourse doesn't shape reality. Balzac and five friends don't depend on language to be hazards to human life. Language does not construct reality. It is not useful or bigly credible. What we say about a problem would determine its essence. When I say about attack, it would not change its essence. Threats to entire communities regardless of language. Now I'll answer their futurism links here. Anti-futurist discourse locks queerness into a pessimistic zone that creates zones of pessimism, lock oppression into place. Holland 14 by characterizing queerness as failure. Halberstam suggested results of native autism, squelch majority of alternatives. Queerness is failure. Seen Larry Lee Halberstam accurately portrays I don't know pretty friends queerness. Nonetheless, Halberstam's also teaching confidence with the desire for normative happiness seems to make the puzzle of anything with the projecting queerness in favor of normalcy. Rejections and interests that after hope could hope be radical embracing their own leads of action or welfare resistant tailors become more attractive hope and be understand as a heteronormative affect because of this limited corruption of queer resistance, cut their queer resistance. And anti-futurity make extinction inevitable. Queerness has radical potential that we use to challenge structures of oppression, climate change. Holland 14 to be radical queer identity must trace the workings of identity, the critique sexual establishment, material failure, how much the historic queer again can have no order for queer failures. Nonetheless, queer activity is very troubling in the context of climate change, eliminating not responsible to the future of later normative and critical, radically queerness, has one implication of conception of very critical element of strategy, arresting the terms of climate change. Critical thing today requires critical section, critical awareness of being the one cut the card at world. Now their impact the app solves or outweighs their impacts. Now, the alternative debate permutation, do both double line, either the perm resolves the residual link, so the all can't solve itself. Perm do the app in the lens of their alternative, and do the perm do the app and all non-exclusive parts of the alt, and perm do the app, then the all. We control the link to any co-option terms, only informed knowledge of political operation allows reformers to avoid being corrupted by the system. That's our scope of evidence. Discussion of policy also doesn't trade off with any personal convictions. Debate gives debaters the ability to construct understandings that are personally relevant in the context of political discussion. That's Hodson. Now, Burke's all fails its utopian. It ignores traditional texts on violence, and also the fact that the state is inevitable and can't be wished away. L statement 5. Burke fails to spell out an alternative statesperson disappear because states are to be dismantled. Burke cannot resist utopianism. Burke's prescriptive argument is impossible across the world, organized within states, states protecting nourish goods. One of the small group release dictating policy. How could it be anything else? Accountability requires institutional arrangements. Burke was a kind of institutional arrangements in which world characterized by ethnic revisionist, one party dictatorship, child soldiering, human trafficking, genocide, corruption, exploitation, and the rest to assume world beyond politics, to assume whatever will be. Don't evaluate their link arguments if they don't want alternative solvency. The alternative is key to solving any of these arguments. If it's unconditional, which means they have to win, that it outweighs the app. Their alternative does nothing. You can't evaluate their their link arguments because they're all drops in the bucket. Also, vague alternatives are voted for fairness in education. They make it impossible for us to generate offense because they can change what the alternative does in the block to spike out of offense, and it doesn't solve the app floating picture abusive in a voting issue because it makes it impossible for us to debate against ourselves independently. It doesn't solve the app because ISIS is global ambitions, which means if we completely withdraw from the Gulf, then we can't resolve that Wall 1023. The leaders of revolutionary movements see their models universally equivalently promised to. Yeah.
Where do you mark that?
Applicable. The word applicable.
Okay.
Okay. Indeed. When you're ready.
You say that the U.S. response to terrorism turns the critique because we justify more intervention as policies. How is that not the status quo? Like, there are terrorist actions occurring now. Like, isn't that inevitable?
So, I think that there's a conflation that question makes. We think that the response to a successful domestic terror attack, like, for example, how we responded to 9/11 is an empiric example of the fact that we freak out when we have a domestic attack that is significant.
And how is ISIS going to lead to a domestic terror attack?
Sure. The argument is that ISIS, our Austin evidence warrants that ISIS has nuclear materials now. They have the ability to hire.
Okay, what are the qualifications for your Austin evidence?
I didn't answer that.
That's fine, I want to know the quals.
Sure. Oh, by the way, the Austin card isn't the only warrant that makes this. It says he's a reporter. He's a reporter for Express.
Okay, so all of your arguments are based on our understanding of ISIS being correct. How can we trust that when media responses is how you're getting your information?
How can we trust on? All right, first of all, Austin is the only card of on terrorism that is from a reporter. Everybody else is a very qualified national security expert. Posen is qualified, Lister is qualified, Braithwaite is qualified. They're citing studies.
Let me talk about that. You say that these people are qualified because they lose their jobs if they're wrong. Why can't they just say terrorism is a threat, and then the U.S. continues to intervene as it does, and they're like, oh, we were right, but the U.S. solved it?
So
it's a question of being able to tailor specific strategies to be able to fight ISIS. Having false information means that will end up getting.
So ISIS kills another dozen people. Why is Posen going to lose his job?
So that's not.
He just writes about that.
The argument is that we can't. Our authors are national security experts who have reputations that they state every time they make a claim about ISIS's strength. If they are wrong about ISIS and they are inflating threats, which is your argument that they are inflating threats,
when the media continues to play videos of ISIS killing people, why does the public not just desire Posen to write things that say ISIS is a threat? Why wouldn't it be
Posen does not care what the public wants. Posen cares about what is objectively true.
Why not? That's who he's selling his ideas to.
Sorry?
That's who he must sell his ideas to.
No,
why
he does
would
not
he
have
not
to sell
care?
his ideas to the public. He has to sell his recommendations to policymakers, and he doesn't sell them.
That's fine.
Posen's not a media personality. He's a professor of poli-sci at MIT.
That's fine. You say that other actors will step up to solve terrorism. Who are these other actors that the
argument is that when the U.S. reduces its presence in the Gulf, it forces us to be more reliant on counter-terror groups that are there in the status quo. So, for example, Saudi counter-terror officials, anti-terror groups like the Kurdish Peshmerga.
Your evidence talks about how
more reliant on that.
Sure, your app says that the reason for that cooperation is so that we can gain intelligence from them in order for us to continue our counter-terrorist operation.
That's a misarticulation of our internal link story. The argument is that, well, yes, there is better intel co-op, but are you all taking prep? Because I can continue to answer that.
It's fine.
9:45.